In an age where technology gives us what we want when we want it, whether it's 1 hour shipping from Amazon, chat boards where we discuss our favorite hobbies ad nauseum, or an endless stream of new lives reviving us after a death in an exciting video game, how does real life, which is complete with complicated social relationships and disappointments, ever compete? Are we losing our ability to experience joy in the offline world? Find out how technology may be impacting you and what you can do about it. Coming up. I found this study on Facebook recently and I almost couldn't believe it. It was done by child psychologist Yekaterina Murashova, who I assume is Russian. She did a study with 60 children ages 12 to 18. The goal? To see how they would respond to being alone for an 8-hour day without their accustomed technology. They couldn't use phones, radio, or TV while they were doing this study. The children were interested. They volunteered for this. They wanted to see what it would be like. And the study was hoping to prove that children today lack the skills necessary to entertain themselves on their own. They're too dependent on technology as a crutch and entertainment that's pushed out to them rather than being able to create and develop their own entertainment and sense of fulfillment through their activities and thoughts. According to the rules of the experiment, the children had to explain the next day how they had coped with being alone under such conditions. They were allowed to describe how they felt at the time of the experiment, keep a journal of their actions and thoughts, and in the case of excessive anxiety or discomfort or stress, the project leaders would recommend that they go ahead and stop the experiment immediately. They didn't have to continue if they didn't want to. They just needed to write down the time they stopped and the reason that they would stop. And altogether, they had 68 kids doing this study. Here's the jaw dropper, folks. Out of 68 teenagers, only 3 of them were able to complete 8 hours on their own. 3 out of 68 completed the study. That means 65 had to drop out because they were too stressed out to continue. I couldn't believe it. Here are the details. Most of the kids did fine for the first couple hours. The fun and novelty started to wear off after 2 to 3 hours. But some had extremely negative results. 5 of the kids had intense panic attacks. 3 had suicidal thoughts. 27 had actual physical symptoms of stress, illness, or detox. Hint, hint, including nausea, sweating, dizziness, hot flashes, and abdominal pain. And almost everyone who took part in the study experienced feelings of fear and anxiety. Why? That's a question that I want you guys to keep in mind as Virginia and I go through this discussion. Why are they having these symptoms as a result of being alone and entertaining themselves? Here's some of the things that they did do that were functional and fun and entertained them. They cooked and ate their meals. They read or tried to read. They did schoolwork, which was not required because this was a study taking place during a school vacation, but many of the kids decided to study anyway as kind of a seeking something to do, grasping at straws. Some looked out the window or strolled around the apartment. Some went outside to go to the store or the cafe, and technically they were supposed to be alone and they couldn't communicate with others according to the rules of the experiment. But I guess the experimenters decided that just going through a checkout with a seller or cashier wasn't a violation of those rules. Some kids did puzzles or constructed Lego models. Some did artwork or tried to draw. Took a shower, cleaned up. I guess that's a good way to get your kids to do their chores. Played with a dog or cat. worked out in the gym or did gymnastics. Boy, these kids are so productive when they took away their technology. I wonder if they do these things on a regular basis. They recorded their feelings and thoughts in the journal. They wrote letters by hand. They played guitar, piano. They wrote poetry. One girl did embroidery. One boy spent nearly 5 hours riding buses around the city. Somebody went to an amusement park. One girl went to a museum. One boy went to the zoo. And one girl prayed. Almost all the participants tried to sleep at some point, but they weren't able to due to the unusual thoughts going around in their heads, this says. When it was over, remember, most of them terminated this early due to stress and discomfort. So when they finished, perhaps we should say, they reached out for comfort immediately. They started calling people, texting people, visiting friends and family, playing a computer game, watching a show. So they either reached out to people, often via technology, or they reached out to technology itself to soothe them. Interesting. And the signs of stress and all of the problems that they were having resulting from the study disappeared immediately when they reestablished these contacts. So when they were describing what happened in their own language, or in the language of addiction, they used words related to addiction. So they said things like dependence. It turns out I can't live without whatever it was. I had a dose, I had a withdrawal, I needed a this or that. All of them, without any exception, said they were extremely surprised by the thoughts that were crossing their minds during the experiment, but they were unable to examine the thoughts rationally because of the overall deterioration of their psychological state. And as a mom, I've been longing for this 8 hours of time by myself, but, I guess these kids thought they could do it too, and it turned out to be shockingly stressful. Of the 3 people who did it, one of the 2 boys successfully completed the experiment by spending the entire 8 hours gluing together a model of a sailing ship. He did take a break for a meal and a walk with the dog. Another boy spent the first part of the time organizing all of his stuff. So I guess maybe they both had a little OCD and were able to use that to their advantage. I don't know. And they did not feel negative emotions during the time of the experiment. Hopefully, it looks like this is getting better with practice and exposure. So 63 of the teenagers admitted that the experiment had been useful for them in terms of allowing them to learn more about themselves. And 6 actually repeated the experiment on their own outside of the study afterwards, and claimed that on the second or third or 5th attempt, they managed to go the whole day without serious problems. So I don't know what we were seeing here, but it sounded like the symptoms they experienced in terms of stress and physical stress, emotional stress during the study were what we would describe as withdrawal symptoms in other contexts. And the things that they did after the study was over, which was turn to their thing of choice, be it technology or social communication, to fill that need that they couldn't meet on their own. It asks a lot of questions, and I think that we can reflect on this as we move through our presentation today. But it's an amazing study, and I would encourage everyone who's in a position to do this on their own, and let us know what you find.